The Rest of Us Just Live Here actually started with a joke, a friendly joke, not a mean joke. But have you ever noticed that YA heroes and heroines always have slightly ridiculous names? I mean, you wouldn't want to say those names. I mean, you wouldn't want to say Katniss, and you wouldn't want to say Hazel. But I thought, why doesn't Mike ever get a book? You know, why do we ever talk about Mike? And so The Rest of Us Just Live Here is kind of the story of Mike, you know, the one who never gets to be chosen, the one who never gets to fight the great evil in the world, he just wants to graduate, you know, before the kids who are chosen blow up the school again. And I thought, I think Mike deserves a book, because I think more often we feel like Mike than we do Katniss. I love YA novels. I just love them. I think they're so full of life and power, and they're about the really important things. But I also think the YA genre is so big that I think we are kind of we can see when people might be coasting a little, you know, when they might be taking things that have worked before and are just going to use them again. And so I think there's room to have some loving fun with the things that go on in YA, the things that the great big chosen one tropes and the adventures they go on, and and ask yourself, well, what about all those kids who just want to have lunch, you know, who just want to go to prom and have a dance and maybe kiss their girlfriend or boyfriend or something, you know, and who would just like to not be annoyed by fissures opening up into another world or vampires killing them. So I think YA is big enough for that. I think it's a satire full of love. I think my take on things like humor and actually things like diversity, it actually all comes together. Is if you are writing a book and you are saying that this is a reflection of the world, if it doesn't have something like diversity in it, and especially if it doesn't have something like humor in it, I don't think you're actually reflecting the world accurately. I think people are funny, even in the darkest situations. And I know um, my books aren't necessarily known for being laugh a minute, but I always like to have some fun in them, like Tomash and More Than This, or Manchi, and the Chaos Walking books. Um, and so the seriousness of your life, even if you're facing something difficult like Mikey does, he's facing some really difficult anxiety and it's really starting to harm him. He can still find some really grim, dark humor in that. And when you're with your friends, what do? You laugh. If you're not laughing, why are they your friends? So for me to write something funny, or which I think is funny. I mean, I don't know if you laugh. I can only say if I laugh. But to write something that is funny is to just accurately reflect what people are like. So it's about truth, much in the same way diversity is truth. If you are writing a non-diverse world, I don't think you're reflecting what the world looks like actually. And who wants to read a book that doesn't tell you the truth? So for me, it's about being true and telling funny jokes. My long-standing theory about writing is that if you start out writing an adjective novel, any kind of adjective novel, even a positive adjective novel, like a satirical novel or a political novel or an issue novel, whatever that is, I think you're setting out to write a mediocre novel because your attention will be to the adjective rather than the story. And it has to be on the story. And the thing is, if I am really writing a story that I love, that I care a lot about, if I can feel it in my heart, or my gut, heart is a very American word, gut is better. If I feel it in my gut that I really want to write this story, and I'm paying attention to what the story needs and what the story is telling me it is, then everything I care about, all the things I worry about in the world, all the things that are important to me personally, all the experiences that I've had that have really affected me, that have really mattered, they're going to be in the story, and it's going to be story first, leading everything else. If it's the other way around, if the issue leads the story, I worry that you write a sermon, and nobody wants to read a sermon, even if they agree with every single word. You see what I mean? There are things that I really care about, the issues I really, really believe strongly in, but I need to write a story first. And if I trust myself enough in the writing, then every issue that I care about is going to come out and it's going to be there. I guarantee it. I really, really guarantee it. So that's what it is. It's about paying attention to the story first and not being afraid of what you uncover. I don't want to give anything away, but you do learn something about the character Jared, something interesting about the character Jared, and I love the way that he treats this interesting thing because it's not the way you think he's going to. You know, in a stereotypical book, he would be scornful of it or too cool for it, but he's got this responsibility and he actually takes it seriously and he does what he needs to do in this role that he's been given. And to me, that is just funny every time. And also, I think truthful because I think that's actually what a teenager would do. I think TV teenagers and sometimes book teenagers are an adult's view of what a teenager should do. But if you look at what teenagers really do, I think they'd be a lot like Jared, and that it makes me laugh every time, every single time he sees a certain kind of animal. I always get wary when people start talking about heroes. Actually, I mean, I understand the sort of technical who's the hero of a book, but when you talk about heroism and when you talk about somebody transcending themselves to become a hero, that feels I don't know, it feels not right. That never sits right with me because the whole point of the rest of us just live here is there's so much extraordinary going on in your own life. And I don't mean that in a sort of crappy rah rah, hold on tight to your dreams kind of way. I mean, there are amazing things happening in your life every day. The love you give to a friend, the things you find out about yourself. These are extraordinary things, and they're so important. And if fighting a dragon requires heroism, then asking someone out that you really care for, but don't know if they're going to say yes, that's also heroism. And being true to your friends is also heroic. And this sounds, I don't mean this I'm sounding like a camp counselor here, but those are amazing things. And if you put a word like hero on top of a massive, obvious, heroic act, I think you're undercutting the heroism of all the small acts, and I don't think that's right. I think every day you get out of bed and greet the world and say, "This is who I am, and these are the decisions I'm going to make. So reckon with me." Then I think that's heroic. In the rest of us just live here, what would normally be the big, exciting adventure or YA adventure plot is actually, I just tell it in the chapter headings, just at the beginning of each chapter, and it's in the background. And it's the battle is fought by the indie kids who have sort of indie kid names like Satchel and Finn and Finn and Finn. There are a lot of Finns, just because I thought there are a lot of books out there with characters called Finn. But uh, they have this big YA adventure, this big almost stereotypical YA adventure. But what I was also interested in is, at the end, do they grieve? Do they feel the loss of their friends? And so I have real affection for these kids who are forced, in a way, to be the chosen one is such a huge responsibility. To actually be somebody like Katniss is so difficult. I mean, you can live it in a book, but to actually be her, wow, what a nightmare. And I mean, I love that book. I'm not in any way being negative about the book, but to actually go through her experiences would be so difficult. So I wanted to, by the end of the book, I wanted to really give them a break and think, wow, you've really, really been through something, and you can just sit down here with the rest of us and just have a quiet moment if you want. So it's a real affection for the poor kids who get chosen all the time. For my last 8 books, wow, it's a lot of books. But for my last 8 books, I've had kind of the same process. I don't start until I know what the last line is, and I don't start unless I have 3 or 4 key scenes I know I want to write, because that gives me a kind of structure to work in, but enough freedom to create. And the last line is something to aim for, and I always say it's the most important line of the book. But I've done it for 8 books, and I always think writing scared is a good thing, and writing with a bunch of nerves is going to keep you honest. And so I thought, well, let's take away my safety net. Just take away the things that I have done before and that have worked for me, because I don't want to get complacent and I don't want to take it for granted. So I had one image in this book that felt really, really powerful. And I thought, you know what, there's a story here, so why not find it in a different way? So I didn't do my usual process. I created the story in a slightly different way, keeping myself frightened the entire time, which I think makes me pay attention. It makes me be more honest, maybe. And I don't know, really every day take care over every single word, because I have to tend a story together. So I took away my safety net, and it was okay. I think I want it back now. It's funny about desert islands because they always say, on desert island list you can have the complete works of Shakespeare plus another book. I'm like, well, can I trade in the complete works of Shakespeare and just have two books? Because there are things I'd rather read than Shakespeare all the time. I mean, no offense, England, but if I had to take a book to a desert island, I would take How to Escape from a Desert Island, which somebody would probably write, and I'd probably take something like, maybe like the complete works of Terry Pratchett, because that's a great big world that you can get lost in. There's a lot of it. It's really funny. It's really well created. It's human and warm and would, give you comfort, but it's also smart enough to make you laugh and to make you think. I think that's what I'd do. Instead of the complete works of Shakespeare, I'd want the complete works of Terry Pratchett. And I think we should all decide that now. I think we should all vote to set aside the complete works of Shakespeare and replace it in all of these theoretical questions about desert islands with the complete works of Terry Pratchett, because I'm right. The question I've been prompted with is, what am I going to write next? But that's a question I actually don't ever answer, because works need protection. They need privacy. They need to grow without the eyes of other people. And I found that when I've talked about my work too much, and this is just personal, it might be different for you, there's no right way to do this, or wrong way to do this, I mean, because there's no right way, because it's like we're all doing it wrong. There's no wrong way to do this. I don't let anybody know. When I've talked about it in the past, the idea has kind of died. So I tend to keep it really secret. But, I'm working. Get off my back, I'm working.